truth about these people is sick.
House and Hustler magazines had published approximately 9,000 images of children involved in sexual scenarios, an average of about 8 to 9 images.
Cosby, I like to get to.
Having normalized the idea of sex and violence against children. Could this be, as Dr. Reisman has taught, the reason for the continued rise of child abductions, child molestation, and even child murder in our country? And are these materials, which are often defended under the First Amendment, the real liberty that America's founding fathers fought and died for?
Assaulted, they're being trampled on, they're being kidnapped, they're being murdered. And I have all of those kinds of cartoons.
Some of the following cartoons are disturbing, such as this image from Playboy of an infant child masturbating with a title that reads, "Getting Off." Not surprisingly, the cartoon supports the Keynesian view that children are sexual from birth. Children are often shown to be the aggressors, as in this image of a small child speaking to an older man with a candy cane. The caption reads, "No thank you, nice man. I don't want to go for a ride in your car. Why don't we just go up to my place and BALL?" This image from Penthouse has 3 young girls in conversation. The one with the candy cane says, "Yeah, and he gives you one of these just for straight sex, no deviations." This Playboy image is of a young girl putting her dress back on. She says to the older man in the bathrobe, "You call that being molested?" In this scene, a young girl is in bed with an older man. On the phone, she says, "Hello, Mommy. I met this nice political leader from the moral majority on Capitol Hill." Incest is another prominent theme of the magazines. This Playboy image shows a young girl in bed with an obviously older man. The caption reads, "Everything's fine, Mama. Uncle William and I are playing a game called Consequences." This cartoon from Hustler magazine is of a father molesting his high school daughter. She says, "Daddy, not only is what you're doing illegal, it's being done badly." Many scenarios involve characters that most children recognize, such as Santa Claus and the Wizard of Oz characters, in which Dorothy is either raped or molested by her companions. In this cartoon, the Santa Claus has an ecstatic look on his face because the little girl sitting on his lap has her hand inside his pants. In this one, the Santa Claus has his pants around his ankles as he rapes an obviously frightened little girl on his lap. The Santa images become especially violent, even bloody, such as this one, where the Santa character has just murdered a child with a machine gun. The child's bloody body lies on the floor. The caption reads, "That'll teach you to be a good boy." There are literally thousands of such cartoons, cataloged and analyzed by Dr. Reisman. These images have been published by the soft porn industry for more than half a century. But by far the most disturbing collection comes from Larry Flynt's Hustler magazine. For years, Hustler published the cartoon Chester the Molester.
It's part of a series in which this man was attacking children.
The classic Chester cartoon is this one, where Chester sits naked in a chair with 3 young girls who have obviously been kidnapped, bound, and raped. The caption coming from the TV reads, "It is 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?" Dr. Reisman believes that because of suggestive imagery like this, many parents don't know where their children are.
Surviving the Rabbit Hole, a sick scenario, surreal story of all.
That's just the way the human brain works.
The following are images from Dr. Reisman's presentation at the FBI Training Center in Quantico. Please understand, the most severe images we are unable to show you. Dr. Reisman demonstrates how the cartoon imagery of children progressed into real-life images, either of children or of legal-aged women who were made to look like obviously underage girls. Over time, the scenarios suggested greater degrees of sexual aggression and violence, including murder.
And he was how old?
I think he was like 85.
85. And you entered into a, would you call it a romantic relationship? From the outside looking in, you were boyfriend-girlfriend.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I think he was 76. Sorry.
And you went in there not because you liked him, but what were your
I
motivations?
did actually like him. I thought, he has this great personality on the outside.
As boyfriend material?
Yeah, and he comes off as like, a nice guy, and I wanted to believe that about him for so many years. And of course, I was attracted to the lifestyle as well, and thought that being in Playboy would be a great stepping stone. But I just got myself in way too deep and really lost myself the 7 years I was there.
You talk about some of the first experiences that you had with Hugh, and it wasn't a pretty picture. I mean, you talk about there was zero intimacy involved, no kissing, nothing. It was so brief that I can't even recall what it felt like beyond having a heavy body on top of mine.
Yeah, that was the hardest chapter for me to write, definitely. It was the one that I kept wanting to skip over and come back to. It was the hardest for me to remember because I was heavily intoxicated that night, and also it was just something I, blocked from my mind for so long and never wanted to talk about. It was kind of a painful memory for me because it wasn't what I wanted the relationship to be like.
When you were a bunny, were there drugs also involved?
Well, he offered me Quaaludes the first night out, and I thought it was really bizarre. I barely knew what a Quaalude was. No young girl did in 2001.
You quoted him as saying something in the book.
Oh yeah, he said in the 70s they used to call them thigh openers, and I thought, well, this is really bizarre. And over the years, I saw him offer them to girls every night we would go out.
Do you think
These are the big fish who always try to take down the small fish.
I didn't even know who he was at all. I was 18. Wow. No idea. I mean, I never knew Playboy, Hefner. I never had the chance to as a child and as my, living in my years.
Right, but you were only 18. So, who said to you, Hugh Hefner wants to meet you? And did you Google him? What'd you do?
Yeah, I ended up Googling him, and oh man, he called me, personally, and he's like, would you like to come and live with me and be one of my girlfriends? And I'm like, I look at my apartment that I'm living in, a small little apartment, I'm like, yes, I'll do it. I don't care what I do.
And your mom told you it was a good idea for you?
No, not at first.
Oh, I thought you did.
That was my first night up there, and I wasn't technically Hef's girlfriend. Then I was just there serving Jello shots and being like a painted girl.
And when you walked in there, did you think to yourself, wow, this looks like a great place to live?
No.
It's dilapidated, isn't it?
I'm a tomboy. I'm like, here I am painted and with my hair. This is my first time ever getting my hair and makeup done, ever. And I'm just like, this doesn't feel right. I don't know if I can do this. But then Hef reassured me. And Hef, have you ever met him?
I have not.
What?
No. I only saw him in that House Bunny movie.
Mascot. Along the way, he broke down some barriers, but he also crossed a lot of lines. Here's a look at some of the disturbing things everyone just ignores about Hugh Hefner. The violation of consent. Playboy launched to major fanfare thanks to the fact that the first issue featured nude photos of legendary blonde bombshell Marilyn Monroe. One problem, the photos were published without her consent. Unable to find work and desperate for money, Monroe had actually been paid just $50 to pose in the nude way back in 1949 for a calendar. Ashamed, she did the shoot under a fake name and begged the photographer never to reveal it was her. Once she became famous, though, Hefner bought the rights to the photos for $500 and used them to launch his empire, all without ever even meeting Marilyn.
I feel like you missed out by not being able to have her here in your home.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes.
Hefner would go on to use the same tactic again and again over the decades. In 1985, for instance, he published nude photos of Madonna from 1979 when she posed as an artist model. And in 1987, it was Vanna White whose old modeling photos were exploited, despite the fact that White and Hefner were friends at the time.
He was my friend. He said, we're going to put you on the cover. I said, Hef, if you put me on the cover, my career could be ruined, and they did it anyway.
Some friend. He tried to bribe Holly Madison. For 8 years, Holly Madison was one of Hefner's girlfriends and was one of the stars of the hit reality series The Girls Next Door, but like the rest of the girls, she wasn't paid for that work. Instead, Hefner compensated his girlfriends by paying them $1,000 a week to live with him in the Playboy Mansion and giving them all the free plastic surgery they wanted, and the allowance ritual was especially degrading. According to former Playmate Isabella St. James, who wrote Bunny Tales behind closed doors at the Playboy Mansion, Hefner would have the girls line up in his bedroom every Friday and essentially beg for the money while he publicly reviewed their performance. St. James wrote, most of the complaints were about the lack of harmony among the girlfriends, or your lack of sexual participation in the parties he held in his bedroom. If we'd been out of town for any reason and missed one of the official going out nights, he wouldn't want to give us the allowance. He used it as a weapon. He buddied up with an impressionable and possibly minor children to his residence and providing alcoholic beverages. And she's not the only one.
Flash, brothers and sisters, an attempt to wake you up. It is the media who dictates the narrative.